Khai the Shadow Wu joins me now as he is, much like all of us, kind of battling this COVID-19 pandemic, trying to figure out what is next and when that next fight will be. Khai, I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to talk to you. I spoke with your manager, Joel, and he tells me about your popularity, not just in California, but in Taiwan. For anyone that doesn't know, tell me a little bit about how you got into MMA and your background.
Yeah, no popularity. I'm not popular. Just super nice. So I got into MMA when I was, I started with jiu-jitsu first with my brother-in-law, Dave Camarillo. He's a judo and jiu-jitsu black belt, used to coach over at AKA, and then he decided to open up his own gym. So growing up, I did jiu-jitsu with him. He's the one that got me into jiu-jitsu. But then typical story, dealt with getting bullied and then, uncoordinated, unconfident. And then that just basically progressed slowly to me keep on coming back to MMA. So I started with jiu-jitsu at the age of 9, then got into Muay Thai at the age of 14, and then did a few like little smokers, PKB bouts, like point kickboxing, nothing crazy, and then jumped into my first MMA fight, and then realized it was for me once I knocked the guy out in about a minute, 20 something seconds. And that was my amateur debut. I've never had another MMA fight before that. And then he had, I think, 6 fights already, and then he had unlisted casino fights. So then that's when I realized, I was like, wow, this guy almost has like 10 fights. And then, I couldn't back out. I didn't know people back out from fights. I personally didn't know that was an option, because if I had known, I was like, man, this is, how are they going to give me a guy with 10 fights as my first fight, But then I remember I'm a super, super comic booky, nerdy guy. So then I remember just watching The Dark Knight a couple times before the fight. It got me pumped up, and then I just got the job done. And then basically that made me realize, I was like, I could potentially do this. So then now I turned pro in Taiwan, which is my mom and dad's home country. So now I bounce back and forth. I fight in Taiwan and then here. Whatever opportunities are over in Asia, eventually maybe even Hong Kong or Japan or China. I'd love to fight there at any time.
Well, we'll dive into all that here in a little bit. First, I do want to ask you what you've been doing during this pandemic. Where I'm from, there's basically a stay-at-home order here in New England. So I'm in a tough position where I don't really get a chance to go out unless I need to go get groceries, and that's just about it. What is it like where you're at, and what are you doing to pass the time?
Yeah, so actually, thankfully, Dodge Sports Management, they have been awesome. They've been giving me good stuff to do. I love chatting with people. I'm, doing one right now. I have a good setup in my garage. It's like a little gym. I have a bag rack. It's a very nice custom bag rack that I'm very fortunate to have from my coach. He built it for me for my birthday many years ago, and then it's coming in handy now. I have, a good setup. I have some mats. I have a good teammate who's been self-isolating from social distancing from everybody, so I bring him over where we train privately, or we go to our gym, Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu, closed doors, just me and him only. We might get a few sessions in every now and then, because he does still have to teach at the gym in terms of online Zoom classes. But there's a lot of stuff that's actually can be done, because for once we're not fighting. We don't have a fight scheduled, so we can rehab all the injuries we had previously as fighters. So I'm rehabbing my injuries. I'm still working out, staying in shape as much as I can. I'm able to plan out and look into other business ventures later on, like this year, because every single business is taking a hit, restaurants and whatnot. So I'm looking to try to give back to the community. I'm looking to try to do as much as I can to help out. Me and some food bloggers are already planning on, when this thing kind of dies down and the shelter place is no longer happening, we plan on going to restaurants and doing little videos with them to help promote their businesses, and basically just giving back, because I'm very fortunate to be in the position I am to have that opportunity to give back, especially during rough times. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm not going to lie, I've hopped on PS4 a couple times with my buddies, killing zombies, feeling like it's the pandemic type thing. So, there's actually a lot that I'm able to do. I'm very thankful for that. I'm not like sitting at home just like, man, what are we going to do? No, it's been great. I've been able to stay active.
That's great to hear, and it's very cool that you're talking about, going in and helping a lot of these businesses that may have been affected. I know I can speak for my area. There's a lot of small businesses in particular that have closed their doors and might not be able to open back up. It's been very traumatic for a lot of small business owners. Is that the case in the California area where you're at?
Yeah, a lot of mom and pop shops specifically, like it's rough. Just to go over a little bit of the subject too, not pointing any fingers, but there has been somewhat of a misconfusion or misconception, like Asian Americans, they have something to do with this whole COVID-19. So there has been a surge in racism lately. So then a lot of these mom and pop shops that do Chinese food or takeout orders, they're getting a little bit of like this heat for no reason, and people are basically ransacking certain restaurants or like stealing. In LA, a Korean restaurant got stolen $6,000, and they're already struggling, and it's just like unfortunate. So I think people are really, they're taking a huge hit, specifically with the Asian American community. Everybody's taking a hit, but just certain restaurants like that. But it's like it's a little unnecessary because they had nothing to do with the whole COVID-19. Like China started in China. Regardless of what all this conspiracy is going around, but it's like, that's China. Asian Americans are completely different. We're in a different, continent here. So it's like, come on. So I'm just trying to do the best I can to be able to help out with these mom and pop restaurants. I mean, our gyms even closed down. My other gyms closed down as well. I don't know how many gyms could keep closing down, and then at some point we're gonna have to. It's doing more good than doing more harm than good. So I don't know exactly what's gonna change, but I think we can only do this for so long. Maybe a month more, 2 months maybe. That's rough because everybody taking a hit. So.
Yeah, I'm worried that another month passes and people might start to riot. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but it's scary to think about. I do want to ask you too, Kai. I've interviewed countless MMA fighters, and everyone always says there's nothing that you can do to replicate sparring, to get in there, to get that sweat of replicating what it would be like to step inside the cage and get into a real mixed martial arts fight. Have you had a chance to do that with your partner that you're talking about? You get in there, you guys lock the door, it's just the two of you. Are you getting that work in to get your heart rate up and kind of replicate what a fight would be?
I personally think if you're in shape, the minute we go back, because the answer is no, I don't think you can do that. But our philosophy with our team is we don't really spar unless we have fight camps, because I think we're past that. I'm personally feel like I'm past that point of sparring. Like, you hear a lot of veterans in the game, Robbie Lawler, Donald Cerrone, they don't even spar much anymore. I will roll extremely hard, with my training partners and whatnot, but it's still safe. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like, MMA sparring, boxing sparring, Muay Thai sparring, we don't really do that. We might do Thai style sparring, which is really slow and relaxed. We just work on the reaction speed. But no, I mean, after all my experience of fighting, even with the losses, I've learned there's nothing you can do in the gym to simulate sparring unless you're literally fighting one another. But then you're taking too much damage. In the gym on a day-to-day basis. So when you go into the fight, you're almost depleted. It's almost like a college football player, going into the NFL and his knees are already blown out and all this and that. So that's one thing I don't recommend doing. How to take your lickings. Can you take a body shot and get up? You need to kind of dig deep and find your heart. I've been knocked out in my amateur fight, woke up and then took the guy down, won a split decision. So I'm kind of like, I don't need to know if I don't know if I need that answer anymore. Like, do I have heart? You don't need that. You're going to get mentally exhausted and then, save it for the fight. So no, I don't think there is a way to spar. I think what you can do is get in the best shape you can. And then when you do get into a fight camp or get back into it, you have the energy to supply.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great answer. It's another way to look at it. 100% for sure. You're right about that. I do want to ask too, with your ties to Taiwan and fighting over there, it's none of us know right now what's going to happen here in the States if you're going to be able to fight here in California. Forget about what Dana White's doing for UFC 249. I'll ask you that in a second. But are you going to go to Taiwan to maybe get a fight soon if you can't get anything in the upcoming future here in Cali?
Yeah, so Taiwan's actually one of the best countries in the world at controlling this pandemic right now, and the only issue is the WHO doesn't recognize them because of political issues. China wants to take Taiwan over. Taiwan's trying to be independent. I'm not a politician, so you don't need to hear me talk about that subject. But Taiwan's doing a fantastic job of controlling it right now. However, I don't know if they have any events. They have an event scheduled in June, but it's like if I can get someone, I can't even get that much training here. And then in surrounding countries of Taiwan, there's not a lot of guys that are able to train as well. Thailand shut down recently, so a lot of the gyms in Thailand are closed. Philippines, their president's threatening to shoot people if they're in the streets, so their shelter in place is crazy. So then there's a lot of stuff going on. So I don't think there is any fights as of right now that can be, that can really be done anywhere in the world. Maybe Russia, maybe somewhere in Russia, but I don't have any connections there. So I think honestly, we're looking at a timetable. I really think August to September, because I think midsummer this thing might really die down. I'm hoping, I'm not trying to be, negative here, so I'm really hoping, and maybe get 3 fights before the year ends, September, October, November, December. You can squeeze three fights in those 4 months towards the end of the year. I think things are going to pick back up really fast too. So
I like the optimistic attitude. That's the way to be. Think positive, and hopefully, God willing, we get to a position where this gets behind us and we move forward as a country. How far is the casino where Dana White is supposed to be staging UFC 249 at, for where you're from in California? I understand it's a little north of Stockton.
Well, apparently he said a private island. So
yeah.
It's I have no idea. Look, there's a lot of rumors circulating right now, and we get word of it, but it's like we're not sure because there's so much going around right now that some people are even saying like he there's this ridiculous thing that they're saying like he built this this fight in like a private mansion now. Like he keeps saying private island, but now it's in like a mansion secretly, like off grid in like a billionaire's house. It's like what I have no idea what's going on. I will say he is insane for doing this, for better or for worse. I have no, what I mean by insane is he knows how to get the job done. He's trying to get his fighters paid. Look, I understand there's a pandemic going on, but if he has the money to take care of his fighters, give them the opportunity to fight, and he's letting them, put on an entertainment value on ESPN, and he's willing to provide for the medical team so everybody gets tested, that's safer than me going to the grocery store, So it's that's what he said. I believe he did say that, something like that too. So I do applaud him for doing that. And I know he's getting a lot of flack. It's during this time, we don't need, this kind of entertainment and whatnot. But at the same time, it's I get it, but it's he's still trying to do some good, so the families of these fighters can get paid, because that's how we get paid, right, per fight. So, well, at least at the higher level, that you got bills to pay. So I feel for him.
When you look at Vince McMahon and the WWE, I mean, they just held a 2-night WrestleMania event back to back, and he doesn't seem to be getting a lot of slack for this. He seems to be getting almost applauded, and Dana White is getting, a lot of flack for it, as you said. What do you think the difference is there? Do you feel like people still look at MMA in a sense as blood sport, so they're just looking for any reason to crucify him?
No, I think it has to do with one's fake, one's not. I mean, if I'm gonna be, there's no secret. I don't think I'm, breaking anyone's hearts here, but I think with WWE, they know it's kind of it's not fake. It's not fake in the fact that they are working hard and stuff. There is chances of injuries, but it's things are kind of already played out. You won't really see a Francis Ngannou or Alistair Overeem, his lip splits in half type in WWE. I know there's been really bad stuff there, but you're not going to get something or Anderson Silva breaking his leg on somebody's check. There's a lot more potential damage that could be done in an MMA fight that happens than WWE. I'm not taking anything away from the wrestlers. They're fantastic. They're more acrobatic than some MMA fighters will ever be. But I think with MMA, the thing is, there is that aspect of unpredictability. You don't know what is going to happen in a fight. So people are that's super dangerous. How can you do that? Whereas WWE, people, not me, but people tend to see them as actors. So then they're oh, it's fine. They're just doing an empty arena, and then they can cut a better promo, this and that. So I personally think that's why they view it athletes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me ask you this. I got to imagine that your goals as a mixed martial artist are eventually to make it to the UFC. How far away do you think you are from there? Where do you what trajectory are you on over the next couple of years, or where are we going to see you? I mean, Contender Series, is that around the corner? What are you hoping happens here for you?
I like the Contender Series. And Dodge Sports Management was actually talking about that. I don't know. Well, things are kind of paused right now, but they did say we were working on something with Contender Series. Actually, Contender Series in Asia reached out to me. One of their liaisons or executive, not executive, somebody that works for the PI and Institute in Shanghai reached out to me and it's like, are you interested in maybe fighting in Asia, Dana White Contender Series? I said yes. We were going to wait and see how I did with my last 2 fights over in Asia because I was in Taiwan for the last 6 months. I came back, so last August till this year, January. That's how long I was there for. So we were waiting to see how those 2 fights went. They went well. I won 2 fights. But coming back, I was like, the only thing that's stopping me from going to the Contender Series right now is this whole COVID-19. But to tell you if I think I'm ready, 100%, I'm absolutely ready. But am I going to go in there, fight and barely win a decision, or go in there and get a lucky punch, or am I going to go in there and dominate, right? So right now, I know there's been a lot of injuries that have hindered me in my last few fights performance-wise. I avoided the ground completely my last 2 fights because of my knee injury and my ankle injury. I couldn't even triangle somebody in my fight. If I got taken down, I couldn't triangle them off my back because of my knee. So rehabbing those injuries and finally already having so much cage time, I feel like I'm more now improved now so than ever. So then there's a couple things I still want to work on that I'm currently working on right now with my teammates and my coaches. So that way, when the opportunity does present itself, we're gonna, the sword sharpened, we can swing and we'll be lethal as ever.
Were any of those injuries serious, or were they just kind of like nagging training camp injuries that all mixed martial artists kind of have to deal with?
They started off like that. But one of them was serious, actually. My last Bellator fight, which was September 2018, I kicked my opponent. He checked, and then I think I fractured my shin in the fight. We fought to decision. I lost, unfortunately. I think I won still. Got a confirmation from Rich Chow, from Bellator, thinking I won too. But that's already behind. That's in the past. But so that I took a short notice. Actually, I took a fight in Taiwan after that, 2 months, 3 months after that. And then when I came back from Taiwan, 2 weeks later, I get a call to fight for a title, 1 weight class up, 3 weeks notice, and then I was just telling my coach, I was like, I think I want to take a break. I got to really rethink my MMA career. And as soon as I hang up the phone with him, he calls me. He's like, hey, title fight, 3 weeks notice. What do you want? I was like, sign me up. He's like, you don't even know who the guy is. I'm like, I know, I don't care. And then I was like, that whole 3-hour conversation we just had on the phone about rethinking my life and career, I lied. This, it just keeps bringing me back to fighting. So this is how I know. Going through all the losing my first fight in debuting in Bellator, losing that fight, and then having all sorts of issues, not even having an amateur career. I was 3-1 as an amateur. I had 12 fights drop out during my amateur career, so I had to turn pro. So all these issues happened to me as a fighter, that just sucks. All the injuries and whatnot. But the fact that I'm here today just shows me that I can push through these, and not only that, but it's fate. So that's why I was like, let's do this, And then with the injuries, the fractured shin turned into a staph infection. So I won my title fight, that 1 weight class up. Then I went to the doctors because my shin swelled up there's a tennis ball in my shin, and then I realized it was a staph infection, but it was cellulitis inside the leg, so it's not even on the outside. Had to take 6 months off, 7 months off. Go take a fight back in Taiwan last year, August. Won that fight by a necktie. I pulled off a necktie in the second round. And I think that was submission of the night. And then it got some website put it as submission of the year, potentially, because, you never see those. And then I hurt my left ankle in that fight. Kept training on it, and then took my another fight, this year, January 12th, and then hurt my left shin in that fight and ankle. I think I might have just messed up some tendons there. So the list keeps going on and on, but now I'm able to finally rest and heal up. Man, I feel amazing right now. I feel so good. I can't wait to go back to the gym without fearing throwing a left kick or whatnot. So things are healing up. So this is like a blessing in disguise, in my opinion.
That's fantastic. Great to hear that you are feeling healthy and close to 100% as you get ready, hopefully soon, to step back into the cage. I got to ask you about this nickname, the Shadow. I love it. It's very, it's like eerie. You know what I mean? Tell me, how did you get that nickname?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a huge comic book fan. I love Batman. He was trained by the League of Assassins, aka the League of Shadows, right? So growing up, I always loved DC and Marvel and always read comic books. And then after one of my fights, so actually before my fight, 3 days before, I had a 105-degree fever. I was throwing up. And then in fights, in a Muay Thai fight here, if you throw up in the cage or the ring, you're disqualified. Mm-hmm. So then going into that fight, I didn't want to get hit. I could not get teeped. So I was very cautious in that fight. But then also whatever he did, I wanted to mimic him so he wouldn't throw that same move again. And he was taller than me. He was like 5'11" or 6 foot. And we were fighting at a weird weight class. It was like 37 or 40. But then I had to cut 2 pounds because I thought we agreed 137 to 142. But we agreed on 140. But the promoter told me it was 142. Nobody's fault. It was a simple mistake. He wasn't trying to take their favor or anything. So no worries there. So then that morning, I had to cut 2 pounds, even after having a 105-degree fever and losing like 7 pounds the last few days. So when I went into that fight, I thought, if I lose this fight, it's not meant for me. This sport is not meant for me. You know, this was like way back when I first started. I was going through a rough patch in life too, and this was like the make it or break it. So then I went into that fight. He threw a jab. I'd slip. I'd throw a jab back at him. He threw a leg kick. I'd move out the way. I'd throw a leg kick back. So after the fight, somebody came up to me, and they're like, "Man, it's like you're there, but you're not. Whatever he did, you did. It's almost like you're like a shadow." And then that moment clicked, and I was like, "That you can't give yourself a nickname unless you have a really traumatizing story." I don't. I was just bullied as a kid, so I was like, I have to be called this. Like, I have to take this. There's no way I'm calling myself Khai the Batman Wu. It does not sound good. You know, like, let's be honest. It does not have a ring to it. But then when the guy gave me the Shadow, and I looked it up, you know, typical MMA nickname, the Warrior, the Beast. Right. You know, it's kind of cheesy, played out. So then when I saw the opportunity to use that, I was like, I have to take it. So the Shadow has forever since been my name. And also when I fight, I tend to, you know, not to be cliche, but I tend to, I'm not a very violent person. I like making dad jokes. I'm a simple going guy. I like my boba tea. But then when I get into the cage, I always had an issue like sparring people. I was always too nice. My brother-in-law, head coach, and then my other striking coach, Steve Chow, always told me, like, you have to believe in yourself more. You have to be more confident. So then I ended up developing psychologically. I realized I needed a alter ego, if you will, but I needed this other version of myself where I could be violent and not feel so bad. And then that happened during sparring one time where I went in there and I had like an hour-long talk beforehand with my coach. I went in there and just beat up my sparring partner really badly that day. And I was like, man, I feel so bad afterwards. But during, I felt really good. So that's when I realized I need that Shadow. I need to be the Shadow. When I fight, I need to take a step back and let him get in there until the fight's done. So that's kind of how it all happened. So it's really cool. I appreciate that you asked.
yeah, I love it. I like the fact that you're into comic books and superheroes as well. My last name is Jarrell, and I'm sure you know Superman is the son of Jarrell. And
well,
so
yes,
my friend would always call me son of, right? So it's just kind of a little.
That's so sick. That is badass. Ryan, the son of, man, that is amazing. I like that.
Yeah, well, you know, I know a lot of people are big fans of Superman and Batman, wherever it may be. I've liked Superman just that much more because I had that tie to it. So
man,
it's cool.
That is an awesome nickname. I wasn't sure to pronounce it. And then now that I look at it, oh man, that is so cool. That is really cool.
Thank you.
What a cool nickname.
Let me ask you this too. I'm doing this all-time MMA pound-for-pound tournament right now. I'm interviewing fighters later today, tomorrow, this weekend. And basically what I did was I had these fighters that I interview on a regular basis, and they sent me their top 16 pound-for-pound all-time MMA fighters, right? And then I seeded them based on everyone's rankings, and we're going to do like a tournament. When you think of the greatest ever mixed martial artist, pound for pound, everything is equal, no weight classes, who comes to mind for you?
I think it might have to be GSP.
It's funny you say that, yeah.
I think GSP. Like, he went through this monstrous welterweight division. During his reign, Koscheck, Swick, Thiago Alves, Dan Hardy, Anthony Johnson was even a part of that during that time. John Fitch, Mike Swick, Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz, any of those guys could have been welterweight champion at the time. Like, any one of them. It's just like, and then Matt Hughes, like he was a former champ. Matt Serra, he avenged those losses. BJ Penn during that time, he broke BJ Penn. I mean, like, BJ Penn was unstoppable, pure talent. He's more talented than GSP, but GSP just, man, there's so many guys that he fought that he just not even just lucky punch. He he just did what he does. He just did what he does, and it's like so hard to count him out. And then he even beat Michael Bisping for the middleweight title. If you want to talk about pound for pound, I think one thing that you have to take into consideration is how many times did you defend your actual title in your weight class, and did you go up now? Because that's a new thing. McGregor made that a trend, which is insane. I will never. I don't think McGregor will ever be on the top 5 pound for pound list. Not because he's not good. It's just because his resume doesn't stack up with some of the other guys. Some people say John Jones, but he never went up a weight class, and he was really good. Don't get me wrong, but it's like he had a questionable fight with Reyes. He's shown vulnerability. If we want to get that specific,
Sure.
He has shown vulnerability with his like in recent years, even with the Thiago Santos fight, that was close,
Sure.
Which other than the Johnny Hendricks fight, he annihilated everybody. There's never a chance.
I think the biggest thing too with Jones, everyone wants to talk about, he popped for steroids there on 2 occasions now. So that's the thing that I feel like sways a lot of people away from him, or even Anderson Silva. But yeah, you're right. George St. Pierre, he's actually the #1 seed in this tournament based on everyone's rankings. So you're right onto something.
Yeah, you can't deny that. Yeah, the whole Anderson was good too, but you want to take a look at their whole legacy. You can't just look at them in their prime. It's like their legacy. Anderson, what happened? He got that terrible injury, unfortunately, and then ever since then he's been on more of a losing streak. So you can't say he's the GOAT, because during his prime and during GSP, it's not about who's at the top. It's how long can they last, right? That's a legacy. GSP has done that. He hasn't, he went up to fight Michael Bisping, that's insane. And Bisping's good too. He beat Henderson, he beat Luke Rockhold, knocked him out, so it's like, you can't take that away from him. So right. I definitely think GSP is up there.
Well, I'm going to agree with you. That's going to be my all-time #1 when everything's all said and done, in my humble opinion. But Khai, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. You're a phenomenal interview. I look forward to seeing you step back into the cage, hopefully sooner rather than later. And we got to do this again here very soon. Before I let you go, if there's anyone you'd like to thank, or any sponsors that you have, or any social media you'd like to plug, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Feel free to follow me at Shadow Khai on Instagram. I have a fan page or athlete page, I should say, on Facebook, if you just type in Khai Wu. And then Twitter is Khai Wu as well. And recently, during this whole time, I made a TikTok. I don't dance or anything like that on there, so unfortunately, sorry, I can't entertain you guys. But it's Khai Wu as well. And then I'd like to thank Dodge Sports Management for making this happen. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I know during this time, like, you might have a little bit more, but still you could be, chilling, with a hot cup of cocoa or something like this. I do appreciate chatting with you, and all my sponsors that's been with me since day one. Dynasty Clothing MMA. Even during this time, they're still working. We're still working together. Almost all my sponsors, Illest Clothing, S-Force Watches, Oceanus Water Drink. And all these guys are still in constant contact. And they're like, hey, Khai, are you okay? Do you need anything? You know, if we send you a couple this, couple that, can you still, you know, do some shoots for us? And then, you know, we'll send you more stuff. And do you need any clothes right now? Are you okay? It's like they're so considerate. And that's the only sponsors that I like. I like building, you know, long-term relationships with these guys, and they've been amazing. So I can't thank them enough. And then, you know, the people that are still doing interviews with MMA fighters right now, that gives us something to do and look forward to. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time, my friend. Great chatting with you, and let's do this again soon.
I look forward to it.